So here, there, I'm everywhere sometimes. Just trying to be comfortable. All right, I'm going to sit for a while. So I was at a yard sale in my neighborhood, and they had a lot of stuff out in the yard. They had some um, lawn gardening equipment, and tools, and some uh, fishing gear, and rain gear. They had whatever weights, and they had some other exercise equipment, and some had a box of books and some videotapes and CDs and DVDs and clothing. And they just take masking tape and they take a square off and they write the price on the masking tape and they stick it on all these things and put them out in the yard. When I'm driving down the road, I'm in going into town or coming back. I look around for yard sales where people are selling stuff, and sometimes I find some really good deals. Stuff that, yeah, you may not need it right now, but sometime in the future you'll need that. So if you see it at a yard sale, then you figure if you're going to spend the money on it in the future, anyways, you might as well buy it that's cheap from someone else that's just trying to get rid of it, and they want a few bucks for it. They're not going to try to. You're not the middleman. You're eliminating the middleman, because you just go to the market or flea markets or swap meets, or you go to a flea market, or you go to like a swap meet, or like a place where everybody parks their cars, or they just pull everything out of their car and sell it, and it's like a big outdoor yard sale. Um, so if you find something you need, then it's cheap, right, and it's used. And if you can, go to the thrift stores. Always, if you need something, never buy it brand new unless you're like a professional and you use it as a every day in your work, or it's something you use a lot. You use it all the time, so you want it to last a long time, and you buy it brand new because you're the only one that owns it, and you've maintained it in that. So, but I tried it lately. I stay home. I don't go out very much. When I do go out, it's to the grocery store, and I usually buy I fill a whole big basket full of groceries, so I don't have to keep driving back and forth to into town and come home, go in town, come home, drive into town, come home, drive into town, come home. So I'm minimally using my automobile. I'm only using my automobile maybe twice a month because I stay home. I don't go anywhere. People say, "Oh, you overthink." You know, you're always thinking about like climate change, and you're a gloomy person, and you're not full of happiness and smiling and laughing and dancing around and being all charming and fun and happy-go-lucky. No, you're talking about like antinatalism, right, and climate change and euthanasia, or some subject that's not relevant, right? If you talked about the stock market, maybe, or what companies you were investing in, or what companies you were you were building a position in, right, over time, just gradually buying one share here, one share there, because the share price is so expensive. The companies that are valuable that you want to own are really expensive. Most of the ones right now, it seems like. But I keep my eye open for a bargain in the stock market. If I see something that looks like it's a bargain, I'll put in a limit order on it. Well, the nice thing about Robinhood, the app, and having an account is they have. So it's what it is it it's good. It's like really a good idea, right? I was like, whoa, yeah. So I'm thinking about getting into that, starting that as a service, and then I was looking at Wonder. It's called it's a teaching company, right? So I have the Roku TV, and I have various settings on there that are just different channels, and one of them is a teaching company. And for $20 a month, you get access to 800 courses. And one of the things they used to send a questionnaire, right? When you bought a course, they would send a questionnaire and you'd fill it out and you'd send it back in like an evaluation of the course. And one of I at first when I first got them at the public library, the teaching company materials there would be the format would be just like a normal classroom. So wherever the camera was, it was like you were a student in the classroom setting, and the teacher was just up there at the chalkboard, right, standing there with a podium and a microphone, and like a big a whiteboard behind him or whatever. It would just be like you were there at a college in a classroom setting. But the newer courses have been more they're trying to be more graphical. They're trying to show the camera from above and pan the camera around, zoom in, zoom out, have a lot of music and intro, have a long intro in it, and put make it so it's if you want to continuously watch one session of a class and then go right to the next session, then go to the next session and go to the next session without any pausing, and you have everything in the menu when you first started. It goes to the menu, and then you could just play all. Right, it lets you play all the sections, so one after the other after it doesn't pause and have to go up. And so I would prefer that because sometimes I'll be watching that educational stuff and I'll just take a nap and I'll wake back up in a different part of it, even though it's just there's like the course it's about stock market and investing. That I need to watch a couple of times over again. And I'm like, I don't do options trading. I don't trade. I don't have margin. I do not use that for trading. All my trading I do with money that I don't borrow, right? Or I'm not doing anything that's lending stocks either. So I didn't sign up for lending stocks. It's like no, I don't it's overly complicating how I'm going to do my taxes in the future. So when I go to do my taxes in the future, if I'm doing all these kind of odd things in the market and how I'm investing, it's just going to complicate my tax forms for the IRS at the end of the year. So when I do my taxes in the IRS at the end of the year, and then I got to account for qualified dividends or a special dividend or a non-qualified dividend or foreign taxes, and accountability for profits and for gains and losses, right? So if your losses, last year I had so many losses that H&R Block, they like boom, they got me like this huge amount in my for my I got like what I got what I paid that year in taxes. All the money that I paid in federal taxes that year, I got it back through H&R Block because all the securities that I bought, and they went bankrupt. And they were American companies too that went bankrupt, and I had thousands of dollars in losses, and these were U.S. based companies on the most of them on the New York Stock Exchange and Nasdaq too. So and there was some over the counter. There was a Canadian company over the counter. I lost a lot in that company. Very Good Foods company. I don't know why they started that cheese when Very Good Foods, when they started making the cheese, and I used to order it. I'd order it online and they ship it to my house. And I thought this is a good product. The packaging is good. It's good flavor. Um it's good sloppy joes, right? I really like the sloppy joes, and the ribs were good too. They had like a meatless. It was a plant based rib, and they had another like a barbecue, a burger that was more of a barbecue kind of a flavor. And I thought this company is great. I really like what they're doing. They have good pack. It's all coming in the. It's packaged well. It's sealed. It's got good flavor and texture. And they were making it out of that jackfruit. And I had like thousands of dollars in very good food company stock because I thought this is a good idea. More people, it's more of a variety of food things available for people to buy if they have more of a choice. If they have a variety of things that they could consume, that's food that's more plant based. That like Ethan Brown says, well, he says there's three things they're trying to do. They're trying to get the quality to be on as good as real meat or taste better than or as good as or better than real meat. So the flavor, the texture, the aftertaste, the aroma, the cooking experience, the handling of it, the shelf life, the refrigeration, the packaging, that has to be just like meat, but it has to taste better. It have like a better after effect and a before and aroma and that cooking it'll hold the whole cooking experience and unpackaging and that and how shelf stable it is and and making it so it tastes better than real meat and it's better flavor, it's better, it makes you feel better, and it's healthier. So that was the one thing was flavor, the other thing was how it affected your body, your health, it was nutritionally a well balanced nutritional plant. It wasn't too much. Um, it was it had good minerals in it. It was good for your body, your digestion, and that. So it has healthy food. If it's healthy and it keeps you trim, it doesn't have all the cholesterol in it or that real meat might have, or gristle or grease. It's easier for your body to digest. Uh, and and it costs less money, all right, and it's less expensive. So he does if he gets those, if Ethan Brown and Beyond Meat, if they just get those three things down really good, just those three things, the flavor and the eating and cooking and experience eating it, the the how it is it healthy for you, how much of a nutritional, is it better for you, but is it better for your health than would be eating real meat from an animal. And they probably have taste testing. They probably have like these whole. They probably have areas where they have like a hotel and they have like a banquet there for every meal at once a day, and they have a Beyond Meat and then they have real meat that they test, right? So they have all these people there at the banquet at this banquet area, and they're reviewers. They're going to review the food and they're tasting it and testing it. So they're also tasting real pork chops, real, bacon, and all the other. They have real animal products there, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the ones that are made out of plants, beans, or seeds, some kind of seasoned like wheat or whatever plant they're trying to use and make that taste like meat or make the texture like meat. They had the beef jerky. I thought was pretty good. It was like at first it had kind of an odd. At first, when I first started eating it, and I never had it before, it seemed a little bit off. It seemed like it had sort of a gassy kind of like a flavor smell. But then as I got eating it more, I was buying that stuff, bags and bags and bags and bags, and I ordered it online, a dozen of them, or the little bags of the teriyaki and the original flavor, and my blood pressure was going up from all the salt. That was the thing. That was the thing I was having. I was having my blood pressure was high from eating too much of that jerky. And then he stopped making it. Pepsi had it. Pepsi was doing, I guess, the packaging and they had all the supply channel for it too. So but if Beyond Meat, if they do good, I have a lot riding on that company. I have like a good percentage of my portfolio in Beyond Meat stock. And I buy their products a lot. I like the Beyond the chicken, the pieces of chicken tenders, Beyond chicken, and then they have the, which I think is better than the Conagra brand. Not Paramount. The name of the food company is Perennial, or but they bought Conagra bought that plant based meat company. It was they make the Gardein is what their brand name is. So Gardein is a subsidiary of Conagra. And actually, even though Conagra makes, yeah, they make the Nellies and the canned meat sauces, and so some of the other like the I think they have hot dogs, Hebrew National, or so they have some other meat. But but I figure it's like owning a grocery store, right? If you own stock in a grocery store chain, you can't get out of that. They're going to have meat. If you don't like the idea of slaughterhouses and breeding animals and animals being using for yourself personally, if you yourself, right, choose to not consume animal products for just your own sake, just so you can just live better with yourself. You're just thinking about your health and how you feel as a person, and you're not going out to eat at dinners with other people and socializing at meals. You're not going over to your friend's house. Your friends aren't coming over to your house. You're not going and visiting your cousins and your relatives and going on outings and being in other with other groups of people. So if they're eating meat, then you you don't even mention anything to them about dieting or why you diet or what you're eating or anything like that. You just eat what you want to eat and don't say anything about it. Don't even try to avoid talking about food altogether with your family, because it might turn out that your brothers and sisters, cousins, and people that if you're a vegan person like I am, I just ethically I want to be that way. They might take offense to you if you mention anything at all about like slaughterhouses or slaughtering animals or breeding animals for food or anything like that. They might take offense to that and be sensitive about it. Or you might be, you don't want to hear about, you don't want to see them eating a piece of an animal that you're watching them eating that and you're thinking about what happened to that animal when it was alive. Um, it's kind of like, well, some people don't like eating an orange, and while they're eating an orange, they imagine they're in a field full of like an orange grove, right? So they're munching down on this really good orange, or a grapefruit, or a piece of pineapple, or whatever they're eating. That while they're eating that, they're thinking about where that plant was when it was growing, right? So they're thinking about being in an orchard while they're eating a really good tasting orange. See, I watched this. It's a screensaver, right? Here it says. So I watched that screensaver. I really should buy another one of those, or not buy one, but maybe I don't know, design one, have one custom made for myself. I see these TVs now; they're like 72-inch TVs for like under like $800. I seen them at Walmart. There was a 75-inch TV, and it was like thin. It was as thin as this Chromebook, the back, the display part of it. So it's really amazing. I remember back in 1985, I bought a TV, and it was a 13-inch color TV. I bought it from um, one of the Dion brothers there in Hollywood. He was a band member. They played a band called Dio, and he signed an album and he gave it to me, an LP. I bought a TV off of him there. It was a 13-inch color TV with a remote control. It cost me paid him like $250 for it. I mean, it worked. It had a decent picture on it, and the sound was good, and it could change channels and everything. So I didn't have, a brand new color TV back then for 12-inch, 14-inch color TV. You have to get a console TV. Most of them, they were about $500 or $600, $700 back in 85, 86. Yeah, electronics has sure changed. I'll tell you, and even um, like creating artwork, right? So the thumbnail that you saw when you clicked on my video, that's of. So I told Chat GBT a story, and I wanted it to create an illustration from the story that I was telling the Chat GBT AI program. It went like, okay, show me the Golden Gate Bridge Park, uh, hippies running in a field of flowers by the Golden Gate Bridge at a park, uh, playing guitars and dancing around in a field of flowers by the Golden Gate Bridge. Um, so at a park by the Golden Gate Bridge, the hippies were were they were being chased by the police, and they were all playing guitars and happy and smiling and dancing in a field of grass with flowers at the by the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And I kept rewording it like then I'd say, okay, yeah, in San Francisco by the Golden Gate Bridge at a park there were these hippies, and they were running through a field of cannabis plants, and they were being chased by the police, and they had guitars, right? So I wanted to make it like they're musicians, and the police were after them, and there was marijuana growing everywhere at the park by the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, in California. And so I kept rewording it. I kept reordering the words, and after a few times, it was like finally gave me this. It wasn't like to create an image from a text, from a given text. It's like you have to tell it a story. So it's like it's this little child, and you're trying to tell it what kind of story to tell. You want to just describe your picture, right? You have to be very. It's weird. It's like you have to do it in a certain order too. I found out, because if you try to do it, you might be imagining something in your head, and you might describe it, but it doesn't reinterpret that the way you were thinking about it in your own imagination. It gives you some other different picture that you weren't thinking about. But you talked and you told it. You gave it a textual description of what you thought, what you were thinking about in your imagination, but how you were ordering the words in the sentences while you were telling the Chat GBT image generator to generate an image of hippies. Okay, if you say that first, it won't know where are they, right? They're just in space. They're just floating. So it's not. It's almost like you have to start your story with a baseline and then work your way into the details in a systematic fashion for it to build that image in the way you would want it to be in your imagination. So you could start with just a grassy field with blue sky. Show a grassy field, blue sky. Okay, show a grassy field, blue sky with white poofy clouds. Some big in the front, small in the distance. And then, okay, now show me a green grassy field with yellow dandelions in a dark blue sky with white poofy clouds at different sizes in the sky, hippies in the Golden Gate Bridge. We're near the Golden Gate Bridge, so those are two details that overlap that on the base. show me the bay, San Francisco Bay. Show me, and then okay, show me a grassy field with yellow dandelions, uh, San Francisco Bay with a deep blue sky and white poofy clouds, the Golden Gate Bridge, hippies in with marijuana plants around them, and police chasing them. And then okay, it's a grassy field. It's near San Francisco Bay, dark blue sky, yellow dandelions, white poofy clouds, uh, some big clouds in the front, small in the back, and a deep blue sky around sunset. Um, with the Golden Gate Bridge, hippies surrounded by cannabis plants, being chased by the police who were carrying guitars. So that's the thumbnail. When you clicked on the video and you saw that thumbnail, I just used a lot of different. I used basically the same words. I had a picture in my mind of what I wanted to see. What I wanted to see, it was in San Francisco, hippies, happy, running around, jumping around, being chased by the police. But so it could have been more. But to be honest with you, I think I thought it was going to look different in the very beginning, because when I said when I as soon as when I brought characters into the story of that image, as soon as those human characters were there, they didn't really have any very distinct facial features. They were kind of just blurry, smeared out, blurry like forms. They weren't real. Their body forms were like just contorted too when they were moving around. When it was time for it to become animated, and I used Pixverse, because at first I was using the Chat GBT AI, text to image generator. So I wanted to get an image, so I used that program to create a single a frame, one image. And then once I had the image that I wanted, exactly that looks like what I was thinking how I would want that image to be. Then I went to Pixverse on my Android, and I imported that JPEG into the Pixverse, and I told Pixverse on the description next to the little icon of the thumbnail of the picture you've imported, it gives you a box to type in text to describe what you want that image that you brought into it. You want it to do something, right? So you have to tell it like story. You have to tell it like a story. Say, oh, they were running in a field. The hippies were running in a field, and the police were running with them or chasing them. And so I said that, and they turned out that the hippies were wearing the police uniform. So it was like, no, I didn't want that, right? In the very beginning, I wanted the hippies were running through a field of marijuana in San Francisco, right? So it showed the Golden Gate Bridge. You knew it was San Francisco. And the police were running after them, and they had the guitars. Yeah, I wanted them to be like musicians and hippies, right? So they're wearing the hippie type style clothing from the 70s or late 60s. So there's a lot of potential with it. Like the one that I put up today it was I wanted to show like a man that's very well built and muscular, and like he works out a lot at the gymnasium, or he's constantly doing a lot of physical activity. Show some real muscular man, but make him look like a statue. So this color of his skin and physical tone is statue, like a statue made out of marble or granite, like at a cemetery, right? And show that same like a statuesque, and make it to where their features are like Roman Greco from like 2300 BC, or 2400 BC, in the Greco-Roman style of like statuary for showing a male form, right? That male, and show that as looking angry, like being not happy, and sitting on a big chair, right? Like a throne, make it sure it's sitting on a throne like a big fancy chair, and make him look like he's angry and he's glaring angrily, right? I said that, and it did that. It showed that because that was all Pixarverse. I didn't use the Chat 8 GBT um, image generator to make that one that shows the guy on the throne, right, with the thunder, like a mythological figure. So I wanted to create this mythological figure, and then the thunder. I thought, well, it would be like they would imagine in ancient times that there were great humans that lived up in the sky, and they had plays and they made drama and they wrote sonnets and long uh, stories about these giant people that lived in the sky, and they were real strong, and they were like really smart, and they were like, and sometimes they would show a face. Somebody would be staring at the sky, and they would be just watching the clouds and looking at the clouds, and all of a sudden a cloud would form into a face. Somebody would say, "Oh, look at that!" And the cloud would be like shaped like a face. And then they hear thunder, and then they would go, "Oh, it must be them. There's somebody up in the sky, right? There's some guy that lives way up in the sky." Because they hear thunder and it sounds like somebody talking, right, real far away, loud. So if people would make up stories like that, so mythologically, they they'd have like a play, right? They'd have like a stage, and then they have people like come in. They have an arena, and everybody would come and sit around, and they'd make plays up and wear masks, and dress up in costumes, and they made up stories about people that lived in the sky, because there was a face in the cloud if somebody looked at the cloud. And then I was thinking about a volcano going off, and when you see that big plume of ash, it's just billowing out of the fiery volcano. You see this huge massive hot smoke that's billowing, boom, 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 like a huge bubbling dark gray mass, and there's lightning in it, right, in a volcanic ash plume. And you might see a face form in that. If you look at photos or films of Mount Punatubo or even Mount St. Helens from far away, they'll show a big plume of the cloud. If your mind, because the human brain, the way our brains are wired, we see faces, and you'll see faces in those clouds. So on one of my projects I was trying to do was show that cloud with a face or faces in the cloud, show a volcanic cloud, a volcano going off, and as the ash plume was moving up into the sky, it would show faces would form inside of the ash plume, and they'd be facing in different directions, and they'd be different sizes, and some would be forming and going away, and others would, as they were going away, others would be forming out of this big billowy cloud, right? You'd look at it, you'd see faces in it. And I was trying to get the Chat GBT to make an image of that. You get what I'm saying? And then I was going to take that single image, I was going to take that and I was going to import that into Pixverse. And then Pixverse, it animates for you in Pixverse. So whatever you can think of, if you can create an image, right? But I think Pixverse, it does it. It has like it has like models that they've had their faces already photographed from every angle, every distance, and they've been hired to use for their features, and they're getting paid for that, or they paid them already, to use their face in the future in chat in the images they create. as out of a library. So I this is the way I think that they do it, right? Is they just have this huge library of imagery that it obviously has to be public domain. And then whatever criteria you feed into it, it will output out back to you just specifically those images that are in its library that's public domain, right? So when you in Pixverse, when you build a movie from a description, you don't give any images at all, right? Pixverse, you just start typing and you describe it, or and then you just copy paste it into the square in the beginning. You create it, you paste it in there, which is a pain. I don't know why in the app in Pixverse they just don't show a blank a, a box for inputting text. Like they already have that in there, something that's already, it just uses up your points, right? You buy points, you buy credits for the amount of the digitization that's being used, right? So the fee you pay is for that that quota of digital of so many gigabytes of digital usage, and you're metered by how much digital usage you're doing in Pixaverse. You can buy blocks of it too, which is that's another thing I kind of like about Pixaverse. It has that you can prepay it. You're not constantly being charged regularly. Um, like in Chat GBT AI, they charge 14.95 a month. No, 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 no. That's wrong. No, it's 4.95 a week. But it would I think it would benefit the user and the service to have it like Pixverse, and just you buy a block of data usage. You use up so much of a data plan, and then it just expires, and it doesn't work for you. It it goes into the default whatever um, trial period, whatever when your trial period runs out, it doesn't work, right? So you buy a block of it in Pixverse, you just buy 1,000 points, and it uses that up, and then that's like, okay. What I've noticed on Pixverse, I'm talking about Pixverse a lot because I've been showing videos that I've made in Pixverse. So I might as well tell, if you're watching my videos, and you'll know what I'm doing. Um, it in the 1960s and 70s, mostly when I took art classes, we had to do everything by hand. If you had something in your imagination, right, you had to go and draw that from your own library that you had in your house. So that was my thing. It was book collecting for a long time. I had a 1989 Encyclopedia Britannica, and then I had the yearbooks for 89, for 88, 89, and 90. It was like a $900 set of encyclopedias, and I bought it on. I didn't have any kind of credit. I had no credit cards. I never had a charge card at a from anywhere. I didn't have a Discover card. I didn't have a Mastercard. I didn't have a Visa card. And I was in my 20s, in my late 20s, and I really wanted to have a set of encyclopedias in my house so I didn't have to keep going to the library to look things up. It used to be hard to get information. It had took time. It was you had to really you had to do a lot of preparation before you knew what you had, but before you learned anything. Um, yeah, it was a hunting. It was like a you had to go look everything up. All your references. You got to go to the indexes and the reference areas where it referenced the book number in the library. There was a code. There's a coding for books. It's like a 3 digit, 2 digit alpha. It's a numerical alpha. So it's like three. It's like no, it's three numbers and then two letters. I think for library books on the in the card catalog. Way with the way the books are indexed. Yeah, you had to go to the library before the internet was. You actually went to books and magazine articles and newspaper articles too. The newspaper articles were on the microfiche. They had at the Englewood Library, which was the library that was my favorite library in the late '70s and early '80s, mostly late '70s or mid '70s. Englewood Library was like well, it was like my second home. It was like I lived there when I wasn't home, or I was at the beach. I was one of those places for working. Yeah, when I was younger, I thought, "Wow, I have this is really neat. This is cool what I'm doing right now." I thought what I was doing right now was going to like turn into something like that would be profitable for me in the future. I had no idea when I was younger, when I was working, or when I was involved in work and employment, that there really wasn't going to be any future for me in the kind of work I was doing at the time. Or, hindsight's 2020, that if I would have stayed where I was working at and not left the area and moved away, I would have stayed in that area where I was born in or same area I was brought up in, my childhood home, and not moved away, then maybe I would have had like better health at my age now. So my teeth would have been in better shape. I would have been more. I wouldn't have been short of breath like I am, and um, I get tired easy. Uh, I need to sleep a lot. Sometimes I think I'm going to choke to death. So I'll choke to death. I'll fall down and I'll start rotting. My corpse will smell, and the neighbors will smell my rotting corpse in my house. Yeah, it used to be. I remember making drawings. Right, I had to go look things up, and make sketches and see what that looked like, and then draw something else in there. But I always imagine when I had my room when I was a kid, I would make the wall. I would take like posters, and I'd like fill the whole wall with posters and artwork I would do too. So, and artwork from like my brothers too, or my sisters, or my mom. We'd have our like yeah, people in my family. We share our artwork with each other. So yeah, I'm sure my brother has some drawings of mine, and I have a drawing of his, and yeah, my brother has a new grandson. So his son's wife gave birth to a little boy. And I don't know. I always think if the Earth is going to be better if for the people of the future, right? I always remember seeing science fiction paintings, and they show like a beautiful emerald city with flying cars, and it would be a single city, right, with real tall buildings and real modern looking, but then in the surrounding area would just be all like wilderness and countryside and farms. But in the futuristic type science fiction paintings of the Earth of the future would show a city, ultra modern city, and then it would show like farmland and wild, still wilderness areas there. Yeah, well, it was funny. I follow the Doomer crowd. One particular person I watch quite frequently. He gives a commentary about the state of the Earth's ecology, and his he seems to come off as someone that's a representative of the other animals that are here. So he sets himself up to be as if he were a representative or an ambassador for elephants, tigers, whales, birds, uh, different kinds of wild animals. Like he were the spokesperson for the non-human animal kingdom, and sometimes he talks like he's angry at humans. He's so violent, vehemently. He has such a vile, vehement tongue, lashing at humankind. He comes off as being extremely um, um, misanthropic. Just the furthest scale of misanthropy is the furthest you could go misanthropy wise, but not quite euphemism. Euphemism is like humans, we shouldn't exist, and then anything that's sentient shouldn't exist either. That's as much, and the ephelis is like cheering on extinction, right? The ephelis is someone that wants everything to end the sooner the better, because then there'll be less suffering. So if you have 999,999 happy, cheering, uh, blissful, whatever, running up and down, jumping up and down, happy, right? You have 999,999 blissful, happy little things running and jumping up and down. They feel great. Everything's wonderful. They're fine. And then you have one mutilated, full of cancer, in pain, grieving, terrified, lonely, miserable, absolutely panicking, uh, deliriously, nauseatingly gloomy to the point of paraplegism, and trapped in a pain-filled horror show, right? There's one that's that, right? They're having a hell of a time. They're in hell. They're suffering and being tortured. But then you have 999,999 that are just fine, that feel great. Everything's fine, right? So they say it's worth it, right? But some people, they're like walks away from Obelisk, right? That story, I'm not sure if I'm just making it, describing what it's about. I haven't read it, but I know of it. So you know of the story of he walks away from Obelisk. The whole thing of antinatalism is that that's one person and that's happening to one person, right? Everybody can say, wow, we have more modernism, modern things. We have modern medicine. We have more people that are living longer. The air is cleaner. The water's getting better. There's more better. It's more comfortable living now for most people. Uh, there's the more people that are using technology that are taking advantage of modern medicine and modern machinery and electronics and materials, and they're living more comfortably and they're living longer. Um, you can't. Why are you mad? Are you mad at? That's just nature. We humans as well as all the other animals. So the person that is angry at humans, they're blaming humans for that. The climate is destabilizing for in a short period of time. The climate is becoming more unstable and it's changing quicker. It's not allowing more than one generation. It's not allowing multiple generations over long periods of time to adapt, except maybe human animals, right? So to be mad at humans and mad at the human animal, like somehow we're apart from the earth, we're something that happened outside of the normal natural scheme of things, is that we but we emerged out of the same earth that all those other animals emerged out of. So there was oil here that we discovered. Oh, we discovered fuel. We started burning wood, right? Use wood to make, and then they invented the steam engine, and then they got more, then they understood nitrogen fertilizer, right? And then better management of infrastructure, water resources, transportation, shipping, modern tool making, machinery, and farming, agricultural methods. More efficient way of growing and manufacturing things. And to get mad and blame human beings like somehow it's our fault, right? Or that you can or somehow we could do anything about that. Some individual, even brilliant, even very powerful, brilliant people that they can't do anything about it either, because it's too big of an issue for even the most wealthiest person in the world to try to come up with remediation that would be effective and inexpensive, and it wouldn't have any side effects, like any unintended consequences. You could fix the climate problem without having it do any damage for anyone in particular. It would really reduce just, I don't know. It was like I got a weird brain fart. I guess you could call it, half bakery, because it's half bakery. So half bakery was a website that would, if you had strange ideas or you came up with some weird thing you were thinking about, you could go in and you could do an internet search on Alta Vista or Yahoo or or Spider. What is it? Lycos or um, there were other internet search engines at the time, and there was a website called Half Bakery, and on Half Bakery, people would post strange ideas that they would have. They would just think about some odd thing that if they could do it, they would, or they would think it would be something, something like you could never do it in real life, but you could think about if they ever did something like that. Like all the areas of the planet that are below sea level, those dry lake beds, those once full of seawater, those areas inland that were once full of seawater, they could pump, or they could build canals too. From the ocean, they could build a canal to the areas that are below sea level, and then just fill those areas back up with salt water, and it would just like take like a hat, like 1/100th the thickness of a human fingernail, right? Maybe the 1/100th the thickness of the human fingernail, it would reduce sea level rise by that amount, right? So that's, a ridiculous amount like that, or it would like be take an take an ice take an iceberg from Antarctica and tow it up to the Gulf of Mexico, right? Take a whole bunch of ships, right? Take all these, you would enlist all these private companies, all their ships, right, for shipping, container ships, and cruise liners, and even military ships, and have them all like anchor on a big iceberg, and have all the ships the drag that iceberg in the ocean and move it up to like near the Gulf of Mexico, right? So all that water, instead of being hot and make these big huge storms, they're really expensive. Right? It costs a lot of money. And have the ice there, and just have that ice cool the water off there. You would be changing the Arctic though. Where if you took that cold water, all that cold air off the Antarctic, out of the Antarctic area, and brought it up north to cool the ocean water off, so it wouldn't be so stormy. And then the like the idea of building a vertical tunnel too. You have these machines that can build horizontal tunnels and put the cement casing in, line it as they build the tunnel. Well, instead of doing that horizontally, they ought to do it vertically, right? And just do a whole bunch of them, like where the water table is where it's away from the water table. So there may not be any water. You could seal it from the water table. You'd have to be careful about sealing it from the water table around that casing, but you could do it vertically, right, all the way down and really, 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 really deep, right, and do a tunnel and then put the cement liner around it as you're building it down further and further and further, and then use that to dispose of nuclear waste. What was the other thing I was thinking about was it's the idea every single person having their own electric car, right? So every single person owns their own electric car, right? And when they want to get together with other people, that they could just take two of that same car, right? And they bring it together, and it connects together, and it makes a bigger car. And then there's at the corner where there used to be a gas station, right? There's like a warehouse there, and you go in the warehouse, and there's all these shelves that have these electric mobility vehicles on the shelves that are charged, that are on charging ports. And you go in there, and an elevator goes up, and it gets that electric car, and it brings it down. You rent that car for however long you need it, and then when you're done with it, you bring it back to that garage, and it automatically parks it, and it goes into a charging mode. And you just have like a business that rents these out to people, right? They walk up there, or there's a bus, they could take a tram or a bus there. And once they have you don't have to maintain a car, you don't have to insure it all the time, you don't have to have it worked on when it breaks. You don't have to worry about if it's going to be okay mechanically or not, or if it's going to. So you're not having the burden of ownership where you're having to maintain something and pay a lot of extra money just to have this thing that sits there when you're not using it. When you're not using it, it sits there and you're paying for it. You're storing this car on your property and you're not using it, but you're paying for it. You're paying for its tires. You're paying for the oil change. You're paying for a new battery. You're paying for new windshield wipers. You're paying for getting it cleaned. You're paying for maintaining it. And you're not driving it hardly at all ever. You're only using it maybe once or twice a month, right? So if the people that they want a nice car, but they don't want to own a nice car. They just want to be able to use a nice car once in a while, And that's kind of what I feel like. I feel like I've spent so many hours and hours and weeks and maybe even years of time in my life, of my being alive time being inside of an automobile. Most of the time was to get to my employment and home. So go to my job, I get my car, go to my get to my job, park in my car, work at my job, go back, you get in my car, drive all the way back home again. So I was spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours inside of my car driving to and from my job to get to where I lived and back, because where I worked was so expensive to live there. The area where my job was so expensive that I had to have property of my own, and I couldn't afford owning in town. And condominiums were, my wife Sherry, she hated them. I was like, yeah, let's get a condo. We don't have it. It's not like we have land. We don't really own land anyway. So what's the point? We just have a place that's in town, right? A condo. No, no, those are a waste of money. Don't get it. We don't want a condo. Then you'll be stuck with it. You'll have to pay HOA fees. You'll hate it. They'll raise it. You won't like it, and you may have a neighbor you don't like, and you have to deal with them all the time, and they're living like right next door to you, and oh, we lived in apartments. We had people over us all the time walking around. So you're in the apartment, you're laying in bed, and you hear bum, 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 up and upstairs above you in the apartment, or the apartments next to you. You'd hear their music on really loud. We don't want a condo. No, 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 no. Even though it was like, gee, I could just walk to work. If I could have gotten a condo in the town that I worked in, it would have been the same as a house payment, but I would have been in my car all the time either. So, and now that I'm like 60, almost 65 years old, I spent too much time inside of a car, seated in a motor vehicle, being on the road, on the highways, on the roads, operating a motor vehicle, being in a motor vehicle. And now that I'm this old, I've spent so much time in my life being in a car, driving in a car, being a passenger in a car, that I want to avoid driving as much as possible. I don't think my younger sister really understands that. I tried to explain it to her many times, that why do you want to live there? We don't have any kinfolk in your area. You're not around your family, You ought to be living near where your family's at, because you're going to be old and you're going to be decrepit, and you're going to start needing help around your house, or the other things. You got family around you that could watch your back and help you out, and you can help them out, scratch their back, they scratch your back. Quid pro quo. That works between family members when you live somewhere it's really, really far away, and and the people, you don't really share the same interests. That is the area that you live in. There's a certain, like, if you're a small airplane pilot, or if you like to do golfing, or if you like fishing, or going out on a fishing boat and fishing, if you like barbecuing, and like um, going to a shooting range, or a health club, right, a fitness club, and you do that with your buddies, and you're like going and meeting up with people that live in your area, that live close by, and that sort of thing, which I was for a while, and now I'm not really doing that as much. I'm just staying home a lot. And I don't interact with anyone except when I have this on, and I just like, well, somebody hears me, somebody doesn't. That's okay. I'm not gonna. If I go a long time, then I'll just like, I'll wait a few days and then I'll delete the video. Um, and it's like, well, delete it forever. Yeah, well, that's. I didn't really have anything that was very that I could tell somebody like if you bought such and such amount of shares in a certain security on the stock market, if you bought it today, then you could double your money in a month. I'm not telling anybody to do that. I'm not. I'm not talking about um, the benefits of cannabis use. I'm not talking about why, how, or if prostitution will ever become legal. Will it become legal for individuals to do as a 1099? Like they have a 1099 doing business as, and same thing with like a hairstylist or someone that's a beautician. They have to go to a school and then they have to pass a test like health and safety. Like they go in there and there's a like a multiple choice test of what is properly hygienic for uh, using a condom. What about jellies and lotions? What about like soaps and keeping the skin clean and hygiene, and about body fluids and rules too, and regulations. Like it can't be, somebody has to be screened. They just can't come off the street and go and see somebody. They have to, that person that's requesting business from them, they should be able to screen whether or not they want that person or not, and they set up the place and the time. And it's just like a cosmetician's license. They have to know how to keep their beauty, their scissors and their combs sanitized. Or if they're doing nails, and they got to know about what if their skin gets cut, what to do, the cuticles, and how to handle somebody that has a problem with their skin on their cuticles. And like people come in and get their hair cut and they have lice, right? So you got to know that, you got to know how to handle them and what to do about head lice. It's the same thing. And also like um and everything's by the book. There's nothing under the table or that's sleazy or that's unsanitary about the whole thing. It's all done with um yeah, I'm sure there's health and safety guidelines in every kind of profession. So whatever you do, if you cut lawns, if you work on cars, if you're a jet airplane mechanic, if you're a welder, if you're like doing working around a lot of animals, or if you're whatever work you're doing, you have to be really concerned about safety and staying healthy. Don't get sick. Don't get hurt. Whatever you're doing, and the woman, she's got to have a certain protocol she follows about that. She obviously exchanging body fluids is a serious matter. Health wise, you could get spit on. If somebody spits on you, it goes in your eye or in your mouth or in your nose, that you could get really sick from that. You could catch a sickness that they have that spreads from that. So I have another channel, and on the other channel I watch body camera videos. And it's like the police, they wear a camera, and when they go arrest somebody, they have a camera on, and it shows when they go approach their vehicle, and they get the driver's attention, immediately request documentation, driver's license, proof of insurance, and registration from the vehicle operator. And upon request, the vehicle operator will, you know, will gather the necessary paperwork what at the request of the officer. And um, I was watching a show, and the guy he works at the for the parks department in Florida as a like a game warden, and bunches of young people have boats, and they all meet up at a certain place on the water in their boats. And if they're adults, and they will be sometimes where they have a drinking party. So the younger people will meet up with their boats, and the game warden will show up there, and they'll keep their eye on everybody, and they'll make sure that people aren't getting like drunk and disorderly, or um, being loud and obnoxious, or fighting, or there's minors there, right? So the one cop was, um, and then there's another one that's more regular. Police get called to a disturbance, so it'll contact 911, and then 911 will dispatch the police to go to that location, and then they'll get there, and there'll be um someone that's really intoxicated, drunk. They're very highly intoxicated on alcohol. So they've been drinking a lot of strong alcohol over a short period of time, or they drank an excessive amount on an empty stomach, and they're reacting to the alcohol by showing like bizarre behavior. Like what some of the calls involve um, mostly women and girls, young girls, and women. The videos that I'm seeing on YouTube, the body camera videos from law enforcement officers are mostly women. And if it's not shoplifting, usually if it's shoplifting and sometimes domestic violence, um, if the police are called to a residence, then it's usually a domestic violence situation. They're not showing like answering calls to a robbery or incident. They're following up on on an incident that happened earlier. They're not showing videos like that. They're showing videos where they immediately get called out by dispatch, and they show up, and they have to deal with alcoholic, extremely alcohol intoxicated people that are very drunk, and or they've been taking other medication with that. Now sometimes it's minors that are using uh, drugs and alcohol. Like the police show up at a convenience store, and there's a car there with the minors in the car that have been parked there for a couple hours, or for a length of time. They're in the parking lot at the convenience store. Police show up, and then there's a gal in there, some girl that's uh, from a well-to-do family. Obviously, she's from the parents are she's under the care, and they give her a car, right? So she's got a driver's permit or a driver's license. So she's driving the car, and then ask her to get out of the car. Uh, they they ask her questions. Where did you come from? Uh, where are you going? Uh, how old are you? Do you a driver's license? And they're not operating the motor vehicle. They're in the car, but obviously they're in the driver's seat of the car. So, but sometimes if the person's like drunk and some of these are happening at DUI stops. It's like someone has a whole lot to drink over a short period of time, and the bartender gave them too much alcohol. So if the bartender, the server, wherever they got served that liquor, if that place that served them that alcoholic beverage, if they allowed them to become very intoxicated like that at the place establishment, they could be sued. Parents, if they allow their minors, if the parent is not taking responsibility for their children, and the children get arrested, and the children broke the law, or then the parents have to be fined, and the parents are the ones that are going to be held accountable by the law for allowing their minors to be intoxicated in public or behind the operating a motor vehicle. Well, it's the same way with cannabis too, right? If a minor has cannabis, then whoever is responsible, the store that sold whoever originally bought that cannabis at that store, and then that person that bought it gave it or sold it to some minor, right? Could the store that sold that be liable also? Because obviously the store makes that person go in there, show their driver's license. Now, if there's a child that uses pot that gets caught by their mom and dad or their guardian, that they had the weed on them, then who gave them that weed? How did those kids get that weed? Did they scalp the weed? Were they waiting outside and out on the street somewhere near a pot store, and they were like watching people coming and going, and then running up to their car, giving them, here's 20, can you come go in there and get me this, and I'll keep 10. And then they gave the money, the minor gave the money to the adult, and the adult went into the pot store and bought weed, and then came out and gave the kid, the 18-year-old or whatever, 19-year-old, the weed. If they find out, then when they show their driver's license, right, their driver's license should be they should be able to, the pot stores everywhere should be able to say, no, you're not allowed entry into our store because you have a conviction. You're convicted of providing this to a minor. We're not going to sell this to you because you've already shown that you're not a responsible citizen. You're going to give it to a minor. So there's reasons. And then the cannabis that they sell at the cannabis store, and that's all they sell there. They sell like pipes and bongs and papers and some other like lighters and other things there they sell too. It's packaged, sealed. It has a date on it. It has a serial number of the plant that it came off. If in the plant, as they're growing the plant, they have it serialized, and they track it through production, and then once it's prepared and packaged and sold, it's labeled. It has everything labeled. It has and then they test it for the amount of THC, so you know how strong it is, and you know where it's grown. It doesn't have any mold on it. It doesn't have any bugs in it. There's no residual pesticides or herbicides or fungicides that were used on that plant when they were growing it. Nothing toxic was put on the plant when they grew it, or anything other than just the plant with the normal types of nutrients that go to for growing a plant. And it's packaged and weighed and sealed, and it has the name of the store, and it has the date it was packaged on. And so the reason that cannabis was bad mostly was because of those reasons, because it couldn't be packaged, it couldn't be labeled, it couldn't be sanitized, it couldn't be guaranteed that it was that if it was sold to somebody, the public, that it was, if you were growing it yourself, it was a different matter. So, but even then, still, I don't know, it's like it should be just like anything else. You go to the liquor store, right? You buy a bottle of wine or a 6-pack of beer or whatever booze, tequila or bourbon or scotch or gin or vodka or whatever booze you're buying. It's all like taxed and regulated and has a label on it, and it's sealed. And there's people that have to identify themselves when they go to buy it. They have to show that they're a certain age. Or they have to show that they don't have a criminal record either, right? If they gave minors, if they ever provided a minor with cannabis, they need to have like a green line across their driver's license, right? So when they go to get a driver's license, they put a green line in there, and you can't take that out, you can't erase it. So when they show their card, it has that line on it. They know, hey, sorry, you've been arrested. You gave our store, you gave that, you bought it somewhere at some store legally. You bought it and you gave it to a minor, and you were arrested and you were convicted. Now your driver's license has to show that on it. And wherever you go and you show it, you can't get in. They won't let you in. They won't let you buy it there. But I'm surprised the amount of people that like drink alcohol at the airport. It's like going to to get on your plane or waiting around at an airport. That's like a favorite place for people to go to drink. Like a bar, the bars there do really well. I guess they're real popular, that people, before they fly or after they've flown, they'll go and they'll have a drink or two, make them feel better. I know I've been nervous about getting on a plane and flying in my past, but I was always real careful at the airport to be like not be in any way too intoxicated. I would never even do gummies or edibles and go like on a train or go on an airplane or go on a trip or anything like that. I would not take gummies or edibles or smoke or even. Like today I had about 5 draws of the pipe, 5 like inhales, or 4 or 5 inhales of a pipe of the sativa hybrid. It's called Blue Dream. I think I made a short, and I have it on here somewhere of a jar I have of it. It shows a pretty nice a big nice like a green bud in there. You see all the little crystals on it, all little all convolutions on it. It's kind of an odd looking shape. Yeah, it's always the same kind I buy. Blue Dream Sativa Hybrid. So I remember pot in the 70s was like, it wasn't like it was around all the time. maybe like 2 or maybe 3 times a year, I went to a party and someone had it there and they were passing it around. And then when I was like in my then when I was in my like early 20s, can't believe I'm confessing that I broke the law, right? So this is probably not good. I'll just I'm going to delete the video anyways. And so I broke the law when I was in my 20s, and then in the early 80s I went and I bought cannabis off the street. There, I broke the law. So there was a street. If you ever visit Los Angeles on a jet, on an airplane, when you're landing at LAX, there's a look down in the neighborhood where the plane is flying over. There's a street down there. Look out the window, out the jet. Look as the jet is landing. You'll look and you'll see a neighborhood there before an industrial area. Or it might even be an industrial area today. I don't know. Maybe a parking lot. But back then there were houses there. And you drive down the street slow, and there'd be kids that would be riding their bicycles around. And you'd look at the kid like you go like that, right? You look at him, like that, and he'd come up and he'd ride his bicycle next to your window, and he'd show you a couple little baggies of a bud, some weed. It wasn't a bud then; it was just with stems and seeds and leaves, right? Well, mostly, sometimes buds, but really small buds. So you buy a bag and it was $10, and you get like a gram, right? And I did that, and I used to wait till like 3 in the morning, real early, 2:30, 3 a.m. in the morning, and I go out, roll a joint, and I'd walk around the block and smoke weed at night, early in the morning. The problem is that back then in the 80s and late 70s too, so if you had weed, you had code words, right? So you wouldn't always say weed. You'd say M. You'd say like the stuff, right? You got the stuff, right? Or um, grass. What we call it, uh, puff, or MJ, and well, that was like in high school. Everybody didn't have it all the time. Only certain people had it only at certain times. It wasn't available all the time. I think that was one thing I remember about grass, and it was weak. It was not strong. You wouldn't smoke it and really get like a really powerful buzz right from the first 2 or 3 tokes. You'd have to like smoke and smoke and smoke and smoke, and then you'd start feeling a buzz after you'd have like smoked like a half a joint, just puffing on it, inhaling it, puffing, inhaling it. And then when you bought it, it was like in the 70s, it came from Mexico, and the stuff from Mexico was all compressed, and it was wrapped in newspaper, compressed. And I guess they had it in the bottom of a boat. A lot of it came over in boats, or after they cracked down on the airlines, right? Because if you watch that show Blow with Johnny Depp, where he's a weed dealer first and then he's coke, but they're those stewardesses that are taking it back and forth in the suitcases. Yeah, they caught on to that, or so then they started moving it from Mexico with private planes and boats too, and they had to get a lot of it in one spot, so they compress it and they wrap it in newspaper. I remember a bunch of us all got together and went in on a pound it was a kilo, yeah, 2.2 pounds. We broke it up, and on a somebody's garage, I don't remember. Everybody broke it up, and they took turns, and they all divided it up equally, and wrapped it in baggies. They had to clean the stems and the seeds had to be cleaned too out of it first too. So, which was like that was like almost half. Almost half was like seeds and stems, right? Big stalks, right? And it wasn't really strong weed. You had to smoke. So you had to sit and really smoke a lot of it to just be like a buzz. Like today, you go to the pot store today. You get something, you get like 3 hits, and you're like, it's like that would have been a whole joint back in the 70s. It would have been puffing it, puffing it, puffing it. Yeah, it was pretty abusive too when I was younger. I should have taken care of my health better. I really paid for it now today, especially smoking, cigarettes mostly. Yeah, when you're younger and you're not thinking about you're going to be old someday, and what you do today will come back to you when you're older and affect your health by the decisions that you made when you were younger. And that really wasn't. I really wasn't thinking a lot about that when I was younger. All when I was younger was thinking about was chasing tail and having a good time and not missing out. I didn't want to miss out. I wanted to be where everybody was having a good time, where the party was at. Having a my dad said, do your homework, right? Keep you got to be hitting those books after school. First thing you do, come home and change and then study. Do all your homework assignments right away. And no, I don't want you going over to your friend's house. I don't want you going out. You're staying home. It's a school night. You're not going out. Or no, those are your brother and his friends are older than you. They're over 18, so they could go out and do things more than you can. That you're still in school, and no, you can't go out. You can't go out and be on your own. You have to go out. If you're going out somewhere, you need a chaperone. But my parents weren't that strict. There was a lot of coming home from school and bumming around and watching TV and playing video games or ping pong or riding skateboard or riding a skateboard around or a bike or doing something like that after school. There was never really right after school, sit down at a desk and spend at least an hour doing a homework assignment before you did anything else. And knowing there were friends, there were associates that were using tobacco and consuming alcohol underage, that my parents, they weren't like, you can't be around those people. I'm forbidding you to be around that person. I'm going to talk to their parents and tell them I don't want you, and if you ever around them, I'm going to tell that you're going to lay down the law for that. There's going to be a punishment, right? If you get drunk, if you was a minor and you're under 21 and you're living under the house, you're living in your parents' house, and you're drinking while you're living in their house and you're under 21, using alcohol. Uh, and my dad, he knew I would steal wine and vodka and beer from what him and mom bought at the liquor store, at the grocery store. So when my mom and dad bought alcohol, that it was it wasn't under lock and key. It was in the refrigerator, or it was in the cabinet, and I could get to it. It wasn't, and they didn't know that I would steal or sneak drinks out of what they had stocked up from the market. And when they did find out, then yeah, I almost got into a fist fight with my dad once. He was ready to punch me out, knock me down. My sisters told me this. I was really drunk at the time, and I don't really remember it. But my sister says, "Yeah, Dad was. He was so mad at you. He was going to hit you. I thought he was going to really hit you and hurt you, because you was being drunk and stupid, and being that way to your dad, right, and to your mom when you're a minor. So you're buying it illegally, right? So there was a store in Inglewood that it was the people would ask for ID, right? We go to grab a bottle of wine, or they would just sell wine and beer there. We go and grab it and buy it, and they would never ask for ID. And I was 19 years old. And 18 too. When I was 18 and 19, I was like buying it at the store, and they were like, okay. And my friend, his dad would let him use his car, and he'd be driving all over the place in his dad's car at night. All his, his dad would let him use the car, and he'd just go out at night and drive around. And yeah, that was a fast car. It was a Ford LTD. It had a 418 cubic inch 8-cylinder, and it had like a supercharger in it, something like a supercharger, and it would just go accelerate, like you'd be on the freeway. You go from like, you'd do a 50, and then you go to 90, 100 miles an hour within like 2 seconds, right? In that car, it was so fast. Yeah, this rug up here, this is a somebody I knew, somebody in my neighborhood was in the Gulf War. And when they were in the Gulf War, they bought some rugs, and they brought them back with them, and this was one of them. They had a yard sale, and they were selling a whole bunch of them. This was what it is. It was a little bit. I had to shampoo it really good. See if I got a dividend. Did I get a dividend? I got a dividend. Yeah, they're probably getting dividends lately. It's pretty nice. All right. Yeah, I got a dividend. Okay. I'm getting interest on my orders too. Even if I make a trade, right, and it goes through, or if I make a trade and I order to buy it at a certain price, I put a bid in at I lowball it. So I want to own a stock, but it's too expensive. And I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting for the price to go boop, to go down a lot. And if the price goes down a lot, or goes down significant, it'll set off an alarm, and it will automatically buy at that mini at that price. And it's 90 days, right? And that money, even though it's sitting there, right? Your money is sitting there in an account. You're getting interest off of that. And it's like, so you go, okay, you look at the chart, right? You study the chart, you research the company, understand the products, understand who their customer is, know how much they made in their quarters, and keep up with the conference calls, their earnings reports, that I want the stock. I want to own that company. They pay a dividend, and they're in a sector, they're in a kind of business that I like, that I would like want to work there. If I could get a job and if I was looking for a job, I would want to work for that company. That's a criteria, right, to have for stock, right? If you want it, or you buy their product all the time, you use it, you're a customer and you like what they do, like water, right? Like a water company, or a utility, or it might be just like consumer staples that you use a lot of. So whatever stock, but I keep a list, right, of these stocks, and I want to buy them, but I don't want to buy them at the current price they're at. I'm not buy them like that, dumb, right? No, 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 no. Very, very rarely do that. I very rarely just buy impulse, right? Learn that the hard way. Never, never impulse shop on stocks. When you shop for a stock, you start like months in advance, right? You research the company, keep your eye on it, keep your eye on it. You set alarms to go off when it reaches at certain price points. Look at the chart, and just don't look at the chart just for patterns, right? But understand why it went up and why it went down at those times, and look at a daily, a weekly, look at different metrics for charting too. Just don't look at a daily chart. Look at weekly. Zoom out. Look at over 5 years. I don't usually go past 3 years. It's Schwab lets you go 3 years, and then it jumps to 10, I think, and then, or 3 and 5, and then Robinhood goes up to 5, I think. Well, let's see. Maybe more. Maybe it goes all, but no, it goes. Robinhood will show 5 years on their chart for securities. No, Max. Okay, Max is there, but Max, you. All right, that's, yeah, okay. Oh, that's for my, okay. Yeah, people that are environmentalist people, how would they judge me ethically based on my choice of how I invest my money? So if I'm under the eye, if I'm under the scrutiny and the eye of a judge that's judging my ethics based upon how I invest my money, or what I do with my money, if somebody judges me on an ethical scale, um, would I even pass my own ethics? Because what I did is I bought a company, and I really didn't want to buy the company, right? Just, I didn't want to buy that company. I didn't want to buy. I bought one share of it, right? And I thought, it's, right. I used to work there. I worked for a company that was a subsidiary of them today. Back then, it was an individual company, but today, the company that I used to work for, they are a subsidiary of the one share of the company that I bought today. And it's like, okay, it's in the state. It's the business has like all these people that live around me where I live. They a large amount of people that live in the same area that I live in my neighborhood, in my geographic area, work for that company or indirectly for that company. But if it weren't for those two things, right, I would never buy that company. Wouldn't have anything to do with them. I wouldn't want to own it or anything. But because it's those two things, is that ethical? I mean, is that not? That's not a real. That's not an ethical. That's not a real ethical way of buying. See, I don't usually. If it's food related, that's plant-based food, right? So I think a lot about, and the mainstream um influencers, the hired hands, the hired guns of the mainstream media, the influencers that are voted in to be influencers, they they are like very very picky about um they're very harsh when it comes to passing judgment on um or they're critical of people that espouse plant-based dieting, right? Or that are plant-based. So they're not okay. This is I tried to influence, right? I don't diss influencers. I think if they're fortunate enough, like to for the public to like them, that they get a lot of attention, and then a lot of people are drawn to their productions, then I don't hold a grudge against them, right? I'm not jealous of them that they have high view count, that they have a lot of followers, um, and that I maybe in a month I might get like 23 views on a video, but mine, but I don't use expensive camera equipment. I don't take like hours and hours and hours of time and use like buy editing software for video editing, and I'm not like setting up cameras at different angles and different. I'm not using expensive camera equipment. Um, I'm not doing a lot of research into a specific topic and providing footnotes and references as I go along. If I'm delving into a topic, or um, see, YouTube early on, YouTube was a collaborative effort. You could find other people that were like minded and collaborate with them. And for me, I was drawn um to the anti-natalist philosophy, and anti-natalist philosophers. I mean, even like the conspiracy against the human race, or um there were some other books that were influential, and a lot of it came from the um Do Not God channel and the debates between with Bendham and the other prominent YouTube people at the time early on in YouTube, and now because then they stopped sharing or response videos, so you had to like tag your video to get the attention of the person you were trying to make a response to, and hopefully they would listen to your response, and but for me it was the people that were following and Bendham. There were people that were subscribing to you. Perhaps I watched someone that's watching right now is a former or has subscribed to like Forever Wolf Films, or Flyora or um, conference report, and then there was superhuman dance. There was Luddite returns. There was other people that were the modern mystic people were responding to Mendham's videos about um, social issues, economics, the climate change, somewhat a little bit, and then child free or suffering and value. How you assign a value? A value is assigned by how much either it's if how much suffering there is. The more the suffering, the more higher the level of value in that experience. That was the criteria for it's not worth to be risk to have a risk to that for someone to come into the world and have to face a risk of that happening to them. So no matter how good your life is, no matter how rich you are, no matter how good genetics you have, no matter how the perfect climate of the area you live in, you grew up in, the matter of the if you had the best schooling and the best education and summer camp every summer and every want and need was met as a child, you live in the life of a luxury, very luxurious life. Uh, You'd still have like pets would still die, people you love would still accidents would happen, things would still happen in the world, people you cared about would get hurt. There'd still be events that happen in the world that would hurt you, that would be affect you, that would people that you love to care about, you would see them suffer. So you couldn't just say, no, yeah, it was worth it. I'm glad I was here. I'm glad I was born. Even though all these horrible things happened, it still was a good thing that I was alive. And you can, like, when everybody says happy birthday, you like get all happy and cheerful and you smile and grin and you laugh and you're all happy that you're here on this earth as a human being. But, but I'm not that way, right? It was like it was brought to my attention that, gee, I've always kind of felt in the back of my mind that there was something wrong. And the kind of the patch, the band-aid that I had on in my psyche was religion that kind of soothed that sore inside of in the back of my mind, that gnawing, oh, this happens, you die, things, all these horrible things happen in the world, but at least somewhere, somehow, there's someone out there that's going to make everything right in the end, and you're hoping and praying and hoping that you do step one, step two, step three, A, B, and C the right way, and everything's fine, and you live your life in a good way, and you're going to make it somehow to a place that's better than this place, and that's kind of soothing. But when you get to the realization that no, you're DNA, you're a DNA machine, you're atoms, you're a machine, you're determined, and it's nature and evolution doesn't care. There's no higher being out there that's in charge of everything, that's going to make it all right. That's going to make your friend's suicide, the cancer that your family member had, that horrible traffic accidents that you saw the wars that went on while you were alive, all these horrible things that happened. There were animals eating other animals and having these experiences, these horrible experiences, and people losing limbs and going crazy, but horrible the wars and things happening, and diseases happening in the world. And it's like, there's a God, he's going to fix it. It's all for a reason. No, it's not. There's no God that's coming to the rescue. Superman is not the Man of Steel. The Superman is not going to come to the rescue. Batman and Robin aren't going to show up and solve the crime. There's not going to be a day of reckoning where all the good people are going to get to go to a happy place, and all the bad people are going to be sent away to get relearned or go back to school or go be separated from the people that are the good people. They're going to be separated like the chaff and the wheat, the sheep and the goats. They're going to be separated from each other. The bad people will be as separated from the good people, and all the good people that are good and wise, and they tried, and they got better, and they went to the better school. They advanced. they're going to go and be separated from the bad people, so that they'll be able to do better things and have a better future for them in a better place. But no, it's not. It break that myth is broken, so you don't have the band-aid there anymore. They're like, oh, be a little bit of comfort at least. In the end, maybe things will work out some way. But but you find out, no, it's just like a delusion, right? You were fed a delusion from the time you was a little kid by all the preachers and the pastors and the priests and the nuns and the school teachers and your aunts and uncles and people at the church. You went to church with. And so the guy that somehow all you got to do is just give up, right? And I think a nihilist is a healthy state to be in, especially if you're going to die, right? If you know you were going to die, if you're soon to die and you know it's coming for you, then be a nihilist, right? Then it'd be like whatever happens. It won't really hurt you or affect you, just because nothing really. If you're a nihilist, nothing matters, right? So you don't worry about anything, right? So you're done. Well, I'm dying. I'm going to die, and there's nothing I can do about anything in the world right now. I'm helpless. There's the powers. I'm overpowered. There's the power that's greater than me is in control. It's doing whatever it's going to do, and I'm just thrown into the works. I don't have a choice. It's all determinism all the way down. And you're a nihilist through and through at that point. But nihilism is not a good long-term. It's not healthy to constantly live as a nihilist, to always be a nihilist. But I think if you know you're going to die, that you're approaching your death, then being a nihilist is a healthy way to die for somebody that's an atheist. But to be like a good citizen or somebody that's a nice neighbor, or a coworker that you could get along with, or neighbors that you get along with a neighbor or a relative or a friend, um, and you're like part of your community, and you help in noble causes that happen, like if there's disasters in the world, in your country, then you'll help donate your time or your money to help out people in a state of emergency. That you're kind to animals and you care about other living things, and you don't judge people, you don't criticize, you don't like hurt anybody else, you don't try not to cause harm in the world and how you live. And you're an investor too. So being an investor, you can't be an investor and be a nihilist either. You can't for me, I can't be ethical and be an investor and be a nihilist. So but if I'm asleep and I wake up and I start choking to death because I've like vomited up a little bit of sputum, a little bit of like hydrochloric acid from my stomach, right? I vomited it up and I've inhaled it, and I just woke up in the dead of night. And I can't breathe out of in the dead of night. I wake up, I'm choking. I mean, if I don't get out of bed and run outside and fall down on the street, on the side of the road, no one would know. I'd have to like leave my house and go out the door, go outside and fall on my lawn really hard and hope that I get gasp for air, and then maybe one of my neighbors will see me choking to death out of my front yard and call 911, have me helped. Yeah, there was a video on about, it was a short, I think it was an EMT. He was a first responder, and he said if you're choking at home alone, it's good to try to go out where there's other people, where somebody will see you, and if you can, fall down there, and someone can help you. Someone could give you a Heimlich, or they could get you push on your chest, or give you a CPR. I was looking into having a tattoo. If I could have any tattoo at all in the whole world, it would be "Do not resuscitate." And I was looking into it, and it's not a valid. It's not considered, at least what I read about on the internet. It's not considered a legal document if you have a tattoo of DNR on your body somewhere. It's visible to a paramedic if you put it like right on your chest up here, or right on your wrists, or on your like on your inside of your forearms. Do not resuscitate. Do not resuscitate. Do not resuscitate. That would be for me. If I got a tattoo, that's the only kind of tattoo I would want to get. And I see like tattoos, like wow, I see some really good artwork done by people that are tattoo artists on people. And I thought that's cool. I've never thought at first when I was younger I'd see somebody with a tattoo, and it usually was like they were in the Marine Corps, or they were in the service, and that was their troop they were in, and they put the insignia on there, and maybe even like the name of their outfit. But I look at my skin today, and all the times I've been out in the sun and gotten sunburned, and my skin started like bubbling, and then it peel off. It would happen on my shoulders a lot. I spend a lot in my into my nose, my ears, and and my chest and back and the back of my legs, because I'd lay out in the sun all day. When I was younger, I was done. I was not careful about how much time I spent in the sun. Some summers I would just lay out in the sun. I get to the beach at 9, and direct sun up from 9 all the way until like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Ride my bike home, get up the next day, I'd be all red. And sometimes they'd blister. And freckles too, because I'm Irish. I have freckles. So tattoos, no. Ugh. Just something else on my skin that I don't need. Something else that could go wrong if I do something on my skin. I don't know. Go into my. I've had dental work done, and I had a hernia operation when I was 12, and then when I was born, I was circumcised too. So, and I'm a staunch proponent of having vasectomies. If you're a guy, if you're a young guy in your 20s, you probably have a vasectomy. Is probably the best decision you'll ever make. There's a hospital near where I live, and um, a whole department where they do lower GI, and they have a department there where they do vasectomies there. I was talking to a doctor about it in front of my wife. It was kind of strange. And then I thought, well, I had surgery done on my above my right in my groin, right above on my left side. I had a big cut, and they sewed my muscle back up because I had a hernia. I had a big bubble, big bubble like poking out of my abdominal muscles of my uh, what is it, that sheath that goes between the muscles and the skin. That sheath was torn, and my muscles were sticking out. So they had to cut me open and then sew me back up. And I was thinking of that. I think, God, if I had a vasectomy, it would be like that. I don't know. I'm not. I'm not sexually active with anyone that's capable of having children. The, the woman that I was seeing, she was past her. She had already gone through menopause, so that wasn't an issue. I'm happy I'm single. I'm single. I'm going to stay single. I like being a bachelor. I like living on my own. Starting to feel like I'm learning a lot about myself, about what I want to do, what I want to pursue, my hobbies. Yeah, a lot of my time goes into looking into the stock market.